All right, let's get started with our deep dive into the Tao Te Ching. I'm really excited to be exploring this with you, especially with Jonathan Starr's translation.
Yeah.
You mentioned how the poetic side of it really speaks to you and how you're hoping to bring those ancient ideas into your modern life.
Okay.
That's awesome. And after taking a look, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
The way Starr weaves in the poetry, it's like he's giving us this direct line to the heart of what the Tao Te Ching is all about.
It's interesting you picked up on that poetic quality. It's not just about pretty language, is it?
Right.
It's Starr's way of making this ancient wisdom accessible and relatable for people like you who are looking for practical guidance.
Exactly. So let's dive into the very first verse, where we encounter the concept of Tao itself, described as both named and nameless. The origin of everything, the mother of all things. It's mind-boggling, right?
It is.
Yeah.
And that's the point. Verse 1 isn't giving us a definition to memorize. It's inviting us to contemplate a mystery. Imagine trying to hold the entire universe in your hand.
Oh.
That's what grappling with the concept of Tao feels like.
It's like it's pushing us to think beyond our usual ways of thinking.
Exactly. And this idea is reinforced throughout the text. For example, verse 12 cautions us against relying solely on appearances or what we think we know. Instead, it urges us to look beyond the surface and cultivate a deeper understanding. It's like the Tao Te Ching is constantly reminding us to be open to new ways of seeing and experiencing the world.
That reminds me of something you mentioned in your notes about feeling stuck in a rut. Could this be a way to approach that?
Yeah.
By looking beyond those surface-level assumptions and tapping into this deeper source of wisdom, this Tao, maybe we can find new ways to approach those feelings of stagnation.
It's definitely a powerful lens to look through. And it leads us to a central concept in Taoism, wu, or emptiness. Verse 11 uses these vivid images, a wheel, a cup, and a room.
Right.
At first glance, they seem, ordinary. But the verse highlights the importance of the empty space within each of them. Without that emptiness, the wheel wouldn't turn, the cup couldn't hold anything, and you could even enter the room.
Whoa. That's such a powerful way to think about emptiness. It completely reframes my perspective.
Right.
Instead of seeing emptiness as a void, it's actually what allows things to function and exist in the first place.
It's a reminder that sometimes letting go and creating space, whether it's in our physical lives or in our minds, can actually lead to greater fulfillment and possibility.
Okay, so emptiness isn't about lacking something, it's about potential. But the Tao Te Ching also talks a lot about surrender, which seems a little paradoxical. We're always told to strive and push for what we want, but verse 22 says, surrender brings perfection. How does that work?
It is a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not about giving up on your goals or becoming passive. Think of it this way. Have you ever tried forcing a door open when it's clearly stuck? You can push and pull all you want, but you'll probably just end up frustrated. But when you pause, step back, and figure out why the door is stuck, you might discover a simple solution. That's what surrender is about in the context of the Tao Te Ching. It's about aligning yourself with the natural flow of things rather than fighting against it.
So it's more about working with the way things are rather than trying to impose our will on them, like that saying, go with the flow.
Exactly. And this concept is also illustrated beautifully in verse 8, which uses the analogy of water. Water doesn't resist. It adapts and flows around obstacles. Yet over time, water can carve canyons and nourish all life. There's a quiet strength in that kind of yielding.
It's making me think about times when I've been so focused on a particular outcome that I missed opportunities that were right in front of me.
Right.
Like maybe true success lies in being open to those unexpected turns, those moments when the door we're trying to force open is leading us in the wrong direction anyway.
That's a really insightful connection. And it leads us to another core principle in Taoism. This beautiful dance between seemingly opposite forces, yin and yang. Verse 42 describes it as the interplay of light and darkness, masculine and feminine, active and passive. It's not about one being better than the other. It's about recognizing their interdependence and striving for harmony between them.
It's like that classic yin-yang symbol, right?
Yeah.
The way they flow into each other, how each contains a seed of the other. It's reminding me of those times when I've tried to force myself to be on all the time, to be constantly productive and driven. Maybe embracing those quieter, more receptive moments is just as important for achieving balance and ultimately getting things done.
It's a great example of how these ancient principles can offer practical insights from modern life. It's not about denying one side of ourselves,
Right.
but rather about learning to dance between these seemingly opposing forces in a way that brings greater harmony and effectiveness to our lives.
Okay, so we've got this mysterious Tao that's both everything and nothing.
Yeah.
This power in emptiness, this idea of surrendering to the flow rather than forcing things.
Right.
And this beautiful dance between yin and yang. It's a lot to take in, but it's also incredibly inspiring.
It is. And remember, the Tao Te Ching isn't meant to be a set of rules to follow, but rather a guide for self-discovery and personal growth. It's about exploring these concepts and seeing how they resonate with your own experiences and aspirations.
Speaking of which, there's this intriguing figure that keeps popping up in the Tao Te Ching, the sage. Who is this mysterious person, and what can we learn from them?
The sage is often depicted as an idealized figure, someone who embodies the principles of Tao in their actions and way of being.
Right.
They act without forcing, teach without preaching, and inspire others simply by being themselves. In a way, they are the living embodiment of Wu Wei, effortless action.
That's incredible. Imagine moving through life with that kind of grace and ease,
Right.
effortlessly navigating challenges and inspiring others without even trying.
And it's not about achieving some unattainable level of perfection. The sage serves as an inspiration,
Right.
a reminder of the potential that lies within each of us to align ourselves with the wisdom of Tao.
So it's not about becoming some kind of superhuman sage on a mountaintop,
Right.
but rather about cultivating those qualities of wisdom, humility, and effortless action within ourselves.
Exactly. And it's a journey, not a destination. The Tao Te Ching invites us to embark on this journey of self-discovery and see how these principles can help us live more fulfilling and harmonious lives.
Well, I'm definitely hooked. We've just scratched the surface of this incredible text, and I'm eager to explore further. It's amazing how the Tao Te Ching manages to be both profound and practical at the same time. I'm starting to see how these seemingly abstract ideas can actually be applied to everyday life. Like, how can we bring those insights about Wu Wei, surrender, and yin and yang into the real world?
That's a great question. And the text offers some really concrete examples. Remember verse 16, where it talks about cultivating stillness and inner peace. In a world that's constantly demanding our attention, finding moments of quiet reflection can be incredibly powerful. It's like pressing the pause button on all that external noise and allowing ourselves to reconnect with our inner wisdom.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was just thinking about that note you shared about wanting to feel more grounded and less reactive to stressful situations. Cultivating that inner stillness, that ability to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them,
Right.
could be a game changer for navigating those challenging moments.
Absolutely. And building on that, verse 19 reminds us to let go of attachments and desires. Now, it's not about denying ourselves pleasure or striving for some kind of emotionless state. It's more about recognizing that clinging tightly to things, whether it's possessions or outcomes, can actually create more suffering. Imagine holding a bird in your hand. If you squeeze too tight, you'll crush it. But if you hold it gently, it might stay for a while, and eventually it will fly off on its own. That's the kind of detachment the Tao Te Ching is pointing to.
Okay, so it's not about suppressing our desires, but about finding a healthy balance between engagement and detachment.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that true freedom comes from a place of inner peace and acceptance, not from clinging to external things.
That reminds me of something you said about feeling overwhelmed by the constant pressure to achieve and acquire more. Could this concept of detachment offer a way to step off that treadmill and find contentment in what you already have?
It's definitely worth considering. And this leads us back to Wu Wei, effortless action or non-striving. It's about aligning ourselves with the natural flow of life, rather than constantly pushing and forcing. Imagine you're rowing a boat upstream. It takes a lot of effort, and it's exhausting. But when you turn the boat around and go with the current, it becomes much easier. You're still moving forward, but it feels effortless.
Okay, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So it's not about being passive, but about finding that sweet spot where our actions are aligned with the natural order of things.
Precisely. And this concept isn't limited to personal growth. It also offers insights into leadership and governance. Verse 57 suggests that the best way to lead is not through force or control, but through inspiration and example. It's about empowering others to follow their own path while gently guiding them towards a common goal.
It's like being a gardener, tending to the soil and providing the right conditions for growth, rather than trying to force the plants to grow in a particular way.
Exactly. And this approach to leadership applies to all areas of life, from parenting to community organizing to managing a team at work.
Mm.
It's about recognizing the inherent potential in others and creating an environment where that potential can flourish.
Speaking of flourishing, the Tao Te Ching also emphasizes the importance of living in harmony with nature. We've already touched on the water analogy, but there are so many other beautiful passages that speak to this idea.
Yes. Verse 3 encourages us to simplify our lives, embrace contentment, and live without desires. It's a reminder that true happiness doesn't come from accumulating more things, but from appreciating the simple things in life. The beauty of nature, the warmth of human connection, the joy of being present in the moment.
This reminds me of your passion for hiking and spending time in nature. Could deepening your connection with the natural world be a way to cultivate that sense of contentment and inner peace you're seeking? It's like the Tao Te Ching is suggesting that the answers we're searching for are often right in front of us,
Right.
in the simplicity and beauty of the world around us.
That's a beautiful insight, and it's something we often overlook in our busy, technology-driven lives.
Okay, so we've talked about living in harmony with nature, embracing contentment,
Yeah.
and finding that effortless flow in our actions. But how do we navigate those inevitable challenges and conflicts that life throws our way?
Well, remember verse 46, which warns against the dangers of extremes. It suggests that when we become too attached to wealth or power, we create the conditions for loss and conflict. It's a reminder to seek balance in all things, to find the middle way between excess and deficiency.
So it's not about denying our ambitions or material needs, but about approaching them with a sense of moderation and balance.
Right.
Like finding that sweet spot between striving for success and being content with what we have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this applies to all aspects of life, from our relationships to our work to our personal growth.
Right.
It's about finding that harmonious balance that allows us to thrive without creating unnecessary conflict or suffering.
It's like we're being invited to embrace a more nuanced and balanced approach to life.
Yeah.
One that recognizes the interconnectedness of all things and seeks to create harmony rather than division.
And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of the Tao Te Ching. Its insights into how we relate to others. Verse 67 offers some powerful guidance on this front.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does verse 67 have to say about relationships and how we interact with the people around us?
Well, it begins with this seemingly simple statement: love conquers all attackers. But the meaning goes much deeper than just romantic love.
Right.
It's about approaching life with an open heart, with a sense of compassion and understanding, even towards those we perceive as enemies.
It's like choosing kindness over aggression, empathy over judgment. That feels particularly relevant in a world where there's so much division and conflict.
And it's not about being naive or letting people walk all over us. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and responding to challenges with wisdom and compassion rather than reacting with fear or anger.
It's making me think about those times when I've gotten caught up in arguments or conflicts.
Maybe there's a way to approach those situations with more understanding, to see things from the other person's perspective, and to find a path towards resolution rather than escalation.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. And it's something we can practice in all our interactions, from our closest relationships to our interactions with strangers.
And speaking of relationships, the Tao Te Ching also has a lot to say about the role of the sage as a leader and a guide. What can we learn from the sage's approach to relationships?
The sage is often described as someone who embodies the qualities of humility, compassion, and non-attachment. They don't seek to control or dominate others, but rather inspire them through their actions and their way of being.
It's like they lead by example, demonstrating the principles of Tao in their everyday lives. And because they're not attached to outcomes or personal gain, their actions are driven by a genuine desire to serve others and create harmony in the world.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's a reminder that true leadership comes from a place of service, not from a desire for power or recognition.
So it's less about command and control and more about inspiring and empowering others to find their own path.
Exactly. And this approach can be applied to all areas of life, from parenting to mentoring to leading a team at work. It's about creating a space where others feel supported, encouraged, and empowered to be their best selves.
It's like we're all interconnected, and when we lift each other up, we all benefit.
And that brings us back to one of the core themes of the Tao Te Ching, the interconnectedness of all things. It's a reminder that we're all part of a larger web of life, And our actions have consequences that ripple outwards, affecting not just ourselves, but the entire world around us.
So it's about recognizing that we're not separate individuals, but rather part of the larger whole. And that our choices, even seemingly small ones, have the power to create positive change in the world.
Exactly. It's a call to action, an invitation to live consciously and compassionately, recognizing the impact of our choices and striving to create a more harmonious and balanced world for ourselves and for future generations.
That's a powerful message. And it makes me wonder, how can we bring this awareness of interconnectedness into our daily lives? Like, how can we move beyond the intellectual understanding of this concept and actually embody it in the way we live?
That's a great question to reflect on. And I think one of the key takeaways from the Tao Te Ching is that it's not about striving for some perfect state of enlightenment, but rather about embracing the journey.
It's like we're constantly evolving, learning, and growing. And with each step we take, we can become more aligned with the wisdom of Tao and its principles of balance, harmony, and interconnectedness.
And as we deepen our understanding of these principles, they naturally start to inform our actions, our relationships, and the way we move through the world.
So it's less about memorizing verses and more about allowing the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching to seep into our hearts and minds, guiding us towards a more fulfilling and harmonious way of being.
And it's a journey that's unique to each individual. There's no one right way to embody the Tao Te Ching. It's about finding our own path, our own rhythm, and allowing the wisdom of this ancient text to illuminate our way.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, exploring the practical applications of the Tao Te Ching's wisdom in areas like leadership, relationships, and navigating life's challenges.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these ancient teachings continue to offer such a relevant guidance for modern life.
It is. And I think one of the reasons the Tao Te Ching resonates so deeply with people across cultures and time periods is its emphasis on living in harmony with the natural order of things.
Right.
It's a message that's as timeless and relevant today as it was centuries ago.
Speaking of timeless wisdom, there's one particular verse that keeps coming to mind as we've been talking, verse 56. It talks about this concept of secret embrace, the state of inner peace and detachment where we're no longer swayed by external circumstances. It's like finding that unshakable center within ourselves, a place of stillness and equanimity that allows us to navigate the ups and downs of life with grace and wisdom.
That's a beautiful way to describe it. And verse 56 really captures the essence of what it means to live in alignment with Tao. It's about cultivating that inner sanctuary where we can connect with our true selves and find peace amidst the chaos of the world.
Okay, but how do we actually cultivate that secret embrace? Like, it sounds amazing, but it also feels like a pretty lofty goal.
It is a journey for sure.
Yeah.
But the Tao Te Ching offers some really practical guidance on how to get there. Remember verse 16 where it talks about quieting the mind and becoming aware of our thoughts and emotions?
Oh yeah, the practice of cultivating stillness and self-awareness. It's like stepping back from that constant chatter in our minds and creating space for a deeper sense of peace to emerge.
Exactly, and that's the foundation for finding that secret embrace. It's about becoming more present in the moment, observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment, and allowing ourselves to simply be.
Okay, so it starts with cultivating stillness and awareness, but what other practices can help us move towards that state of inner peace and detachment that the Tao Te Ching describes?
Well, the text also emphasizes the importance of living in accordance with nature, embracing simplicity, and letting go of attachments.
It's like the Tao Te Ching is encouraging us to simplify our lives, to reconnect with the natural world, and to find contentment in what we have, rather than constantly chasing after more.
Precisely. And when we do that, when we start to align ourselves with these natural rhythms and principles, something incredible happens. We start to feel more grounded, more centered, and less reactive to the ups and downs of life.
It's like we're finding that inner stability, that unshakable core that verse 56 describes.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of the Tao Te Ching. It's not just a collection of philosophical ideas. It's a practical guide for living a more fulfilling and harmonious life.
So it's about taking those ancient principles of balance, harmony, and interconnectedness and weaving them into the fabric of our everyday lives.
And it's a journey that unfolds over time, with each experience offering opportunities for learning and growth.
Speaking of growth, I'm curious to hear more about how the Tao Te Ching guides us towards personal transformation. Like, how can we use these principles to become the best versions of ourselves?
That's a great question. And the Tao Te Ching doesn't offer a one-size-fits-all answer, but it does provide a framework for self-discovery and growth. Remember the concept of Wu Wei, effortless action.
Oh yeah, the idea of aligning ourselves with the natural flow of things rather than constantly pushing and striving.
Exactly. And that principle applies to our personal growth as well. It's about letting go of the need to control everything and instead embracing the journey, trusting that the path will unfold as it should.
Okay. But that sounds a little scary, to be honest. Like, what if we let go of control and things don't go the way we planned?
That's where the concept of surrender comes in. Remember verse 22, it says, surrender brings perfection. It's not about giving up or becoming passive. It's about letting go of our rigid attachments to outcomes and allowing ourselves to be guided by deeper wisdom.
So it's about trusting in the process, even when we don't know where it's leading us.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that true growth often happens outside of our comfort zones.
Right.
In those moments when we're willing to let go of the familiar and embrace the unknown.
It's like we're being invited to step into the river of life and allow it to carry us forward, trusting that we'll reach our destination even if we don't know what it looks like yet.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And this idea of embracing the journey is central to the Tao Te Ching's vision of personal transformation. It's not about achieving some fixed goal, but rather about continually evolving, expanding our awareness, and deepening our connection with the wisdom of Tao.
So it's less about becoming something we're not and more about unfolding into the fullest expression of who we already are.
Exactly, and that's where the real magic happens. When we let go of our limiting beliefs, our fears, and our need to control, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities.
It's like we're shedding those old layers that no longer serve us and allowing our true selves to emerge radiant and whole.
And that's what the Tao Te Ching ultimately points to, a state of being where we're aligned with our true nature, living in harmony with ourselves, with others, and with the world around us.
This is all so inspiring, and it's making me think about the challenges you mentioned in your notes, especially those related to finding your purpose and making a meaningful contribution to the world. Could this concept of personal transformation, of aligning ourselves with our true nature, offer a path towards finding that sense of purpose you're seeking?
It's definitely worth exploring. And the Tao Te Ching offers some really valuable insights in that regard. Remember the concept of yin and yang, the interplay of seemingly opposite forces.
Oh yeah, the idea that light and darkness, masculine and feminine, active and passive, all exist in dynamic balance.
Exactly. And this principle can also be applied to finding our purpose. It's not about choosing one path over another, but rather about recognizing that our unique purpose often lies in the integration of our seemingly different interests, talents, and experiences.
So it's not about limiting ourselves to one specific role or career, but rather about finding a way to weave all those different threads together into a tapestry that represents the fullness of who we are.
Exactly. And when we do that, when we allow ourselves to embrace the fullness of our being, we naturally start to attract opportunities that align with our true purpose.
It's like our energy shifts and we become a magnet for the people, experiences, and resources that are meant to support us on our journey.
And that's the power of aligning ourselves with Tao, with the natural flow of life. When we let go of our need to control and instead trust in the process, the universe conspires to support us in ways we couldn't have imagined.
This is all so incredible. But honestly, it also feels like a lot to process. Like, how do we even begin to integrate all this wisdom into our daily lives?
Well, the beauty of the Tao Te Ching is that it doesn't require us to make any drastic changes overnight.
Right.
It's about taking small steps, making conscious choices, and gradually aligning our actions with these principles.
So it's not about achieving some kind of perfect state of enlightenment, but rather about embarking on a lifelong journey of learning, growing, and becoming more aligned with the wisdom of Tao.
Exactly. And it's a journey that's filled with wonder, discovery, and endless possibilities. Remember, the path itself is the destination.
It's like we're creating those mini retreats throughout the day, those moments of pause where we can reconnect with our center and tap into that secret embrace.
Exactly. And it's amazing how even a few conscious breaths can shift our energy and bring us back into a state of balance and presence.
So it's about finding those simple, practical ways to integrate these principles into our daily routines, weaving them into the fabric of our lives.
And as we do that, as we start to live more consciously and intentionally, we'll find that the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching naturally starts to inform our choices, our actions, and our relationships.
It's like we're creating a ripple effect, not only transforming our own lives, but also influencing the world around us in a positive way.
And that brings us to another important aspect of embodying the Tao Te Ching, the idea of living in harmony with nature.
Oh, yeah. We touched on this earlier, but I'm eager to hear more about how connecting with the natural world can support us in finding that secret embrace.
Well, remember how the Tao Te Ching encourages us to embrace simplicity, to let go of desires, and to find contentment in the present moment.
Right. It's about appreciating the beauty and abundance that's already present in our lives, rather than constantly chasing after more.
Exactly. And when we spend time in nature, we're surrounded by those same principles in action. Think about the trees, how they stand tall and strong, rooted in the earth. Yet they also sway gracefully in the wind, adapting to the changing elements.
It's like they're embodying that balance of strength and flexibility, of rootedness and adaptability that the Tao Te Ching talks about.
And the same goes for the rivers, how they effortlessly carve their way through the landscape, finding the path of least resistance. Yet over time, they can shape mountains and create canyons.
It's a powerful reminder that gentleness and persistence can be just as powerful as force and control.
Exactly. And when we immerse ourselves in that natural world, something incredible happens. Our minds start to quiet down, our bodies begin to relax, and we start to feel a sense of peace and connection that's hard to find in our busy, technology-driven lives.
It's like we're recharging our batteries, tapping into a source of energy and wisdom that's been there all along.
And that's the beauty of connecting with nature. It reminds us that we're not separate from the natural world, but rather an integral part of it. And when we remember that, when we feel that connection, it's easier to access that secret embrace, that state of inner peace and harmony that the Tao Te Ching describes.
So it's about finding those moments to step away from the noise and distractions of everyday life and reconnect with the natural world, allowing its peace and wisdom to seep into our hearts and minds.
And it doesn't have to be a grand wilderness adventure. Even a few moments spent walking in a park, sitting under a tree, or simply gazing up at the stars can have a profound impact on our well-being.
It's about making that conscious choice to connect with nature, to appreciate its beauty, and to allow its wisdom to guide us.
And as we do that, we'll find that the secret embrace becomes more accessible, not just in those moments of solitude in nature, but in every aspect of our lives.
This has been such an incredible deep dive into the Tao Te Ching. I feel like we've covered so much ground, but I'm also realizing that we've only just begun to explore the depths of this profound and timeless text.
It's true. The Tao Te Ching is a gift that keeps on giving. With each reading, we're likely to uncover new layers of meaning, new insights, and new ways to apply its wisdom to our lives.
And I think that's what makes it so powerful and relevant even after all these centuries. It's a living text, a source of guidance and inspiration that can support us on our journey of self-discovery and growth, no matter where we are on our path.
And it's a journey that's worth taking. Because when we embrace the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities. A world where we can live in greater harmony with ourselves, with others, and with the natural world.
Well, I'm definitely feeling inspired to continue exploring this path, and I hope you are too. Remember, the Tao Te Ching is not about achieving some kind of perfect state of enlightenment, but rather about embracing the journey, with all its twists and turns, its challenges and triumphs.
And it's in those moments of embracing the journey, of allowing ourselves to flow with the current of life, that we often discover the greatest wisdom, the deepest peace, and the most profound sense of connection.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Tao Te Ching. May its wisdom continue to guide you on your path, illuminating your way with its profound and timeless insights.